I gave him 9 years of my youth, forced to give up his child. But he married another woman. Now his world is crumbling and I didn't even have to lift a finger. I met Adrian when I was young, too young to understand how dangerous it is to give your whole heart to one person. He wasn't just a man to me, he was my future. I believed every word he spoke, every promise he whispered in the quiet of the night. He said I was his only one, that no matter what his family thought, no matter what the world said, we would always belong to each other. For 9 years I stood by him. I gave him the best years of my life. The years I should have spent building myself, I spent molding myself to fit into his world. I silenced my own dreams so I could cheer louder for his. I gave up opportunities that would have taken me far, just so I could always be close when he needed me. I learned how to smile in rooms where I wasn't wanted, how to stand tall when his family looked at me like I wasn't enough. I carried his secrets, I protected his pride, and I took the blows of his temper so no one else would see the cracks in him. I was his comfort when he was restless, his voice of reason when he lost control, his constant when everything else shifted. I loved him not for the wealth he was born into but for the man I thought he could be. So when I found out I was carrying his child, I thought it was a blessing, the natural next step in the life we had planned together. I imagined us as a family, imagined him holding our baby, imagined the smile on his face when he finally called me his wife. But love has a cruel way of exposing the truth. The day I thought Adrian would finally choose me, he stood beneath glittering lights, dressed like a man ready to take on the world, and slid a diamond ring onto another woman's finger. My world shattered, but the nightmare wasn't finished. While he smiled for the cameras and kissed his bride-to-be, I was dragged into a cold hospital room by his family. They said I wasn't worthy of giving birth to a child with his blood. They said I was nothing more than a mistake he needed to erase. I begged, I screamed, I cried until my voice was gone, but no one listened. Not even him. That day I lost 2 things, the child I carried and the man I thought I loved. When I stumbled out of that hospital, I was no longer the same woman. My body was weak, my soul was shattered, and the life I had dreamed of was gone. Adrian never came looking for me. He never asked where I went, never cared to know what became of me. After that night I vanished. Not a word, not a trace. The woman who once clung to Adrian's promises was buried in silence. The first weeks were the hardest. My body was weak, still aching from what they had taken from me, but the pain in my heart was far worse. I couldn't sleep without hearing the echo of my baby's heartbeat. I couldn't close my eyes without seeing Adrian, smiling at another woman while I was left bleeding and broken. I wanted to hate him then, but hate was too heavy for a soul already shattered. So I did the only thing I could. I walked away. No one knew where I went. I left behind the places we once shared, the people who once knew me, even the version of myself who had believed love was enough. Each day I rebuilt myself from the ground up, brick by brick, scar by scar. I learned how to live without him, how to breathe without the weight of his name pressing on my chest. But time does not erase scars. It only sharpens them. Years passed, and while the world believed I had vanished forever, I returned. But I was not the same. My laughter was gone, replaced by silence. My warmth had turned to ice. The girl who once looked at Adrian with stars in her eyes had become a woman who saw him for what he truly was, weak, selfish, and haunted. Because that was the first thing I noticed when I saw him again. For all his success, for all the power his family's name had given him, Adrian was not whole. His eyes carried shadows, his smile faltered too easily, and beneath his carefully built walls I could see it, regret. Regret that gnawed at him day and night, regret that no wealth or success could quiet. The man who once discarded me as though I were nothing now looks at me as if I'm the only thing left that matters. He hides it well in front of others, but I see the torment. He's obsessed, desperate, consumed by the ghost of the woman he destroyed. But he doesn't realize that ghost no longer exists. I am no longer the girl who loved him more than myself. I am no longer the woman who begged for his touch, his promise, his name. I am the woman who carries every scar he gave me. And this time, it won't be me who breaks. It didn't take long after my return for Adrian to notice me. The first time our eyes met again, I saw the color drain from his face. For a moment he looked like he had seen a ghost. And in a way he had. I was the ghost of the woman he destroyed, the ghost of the child he never cared to protect, the ghost of the life we should have had. At first he tried to pretend that he was still the same confident man, untouchable, proud, in control. But I could see the cracks. His smile lingered too long when his eyes found me, his voice softened when he spoke my name, His composure faltered every time I turned away. Then came the calls. The messages. The desperate attempts to reach me. Let's talk. Please, just 5 minutes. I need to explain. Explain? After everything, what words could ever stitch back a heart he himself had torn apart? But Adrian wasn't the kind of man who knew how to let go. His obsession grew like wildfire. I caught him watching me in crowded rooms, his gaze following me as if the world around us no longer existed. He sent flowers I never asked for, gifts I never touched, letters I never opened. And still he pushed further. He cornered me once, his voice trembling in a way I had never heard before. His hands shook as he reached for me, as if touching me was the only way to prove I was real. His eyes, once cold and unyielding, now burned with something raw, regret, desperation, and a sickness that came from knowing he had thrown away the one thing he could never replace. Please, he whispered, don't look at me like that. Don't look at me like I'm nothing to you. But he was nothing to me now. Every time I ignored him, he unraveled a little more. The man who once had the world at his feet was crumbling, piece by piece, undone not by failure or enemies, but by the memory of me, the woman he chose to destroy. And I let him burn. Because I wanted him to feel it. The emptiness. The desperation. The madness of chasing something already gone. For years, it was me who begged, me who cried, me who broke while he walked away untouched. Now it was his turn. Adrian's obsession didn't explode all at once. It crept in slowly like a shadow stretching longer each day. At first it was his eyes. I would feel them on me across the room, heavy and unblinking, as though he was afraid that if he looked away I might disappear again. He wouldn't speak, wouldn't move, just stand there with a drink in his hand, staring like a man lost in a dream he couldn't wake from. Then came the small intrusions. A car parked outside the places I went. A figure lingering just long enough for me to know it was him. Calls from unknown numbers that stayed silent when I answered. I ignored them all, but his persistence grew bolder. He began showing up where he knew I would be. At a cafe, leaning casually by the counter as if it were coincidence. At the library, pretending to browse the shelves while his eyes followed me. At gatherings, he no longer bothered hiding his stare, no longer cared who noticed the way his attention clung to me like a man starved. And when I refused to acknowledge him, desperation bled into every move. He sent flowers so many times the smell of roses began to sicken me. He left letters at my door, his handwriting frantic, the ink smudged as if written in a rush. Each one started the same, I can't stop thinking about you. Each one ended the same, please don't ignore me. The world still saw Adrian as the powerful man he had always been, confident, untouchable, proud. But behind closed doors, when his eyes met mine, I saw the truth. His pride was gone. His control was gone. All that was left was a man unraveling, chasing something he could never have again. One night he finally cornered me outside. Rain poured down, soaking us both, but he didn't care. His hand gripped my arm, not with force but with the desperation of someone drowning. His voice cracked, raw and unfamiliar. Tell me what to do, he begged. Tell me how to fix this. I'll do anything. Just don't walk away again. The rain washed over his face, but it couldn't hide the tremble in his lips, the panic in his eyes. For years I had been the one broken at his feet. But now Adrian was breaking at mine. And the cruelest part was, I felt nothing. Every tear he shed, every sleepless night, every desperate word was just proof of what I had always known, that he had destroyed the one thing he could never replace. So I let him fall deeper. Because obsession was the only punishment that could fit his crime. The woman he married was always at his side. Draped in elegance, dressed in perfection, she carried herself with the grace of someone convinced she had won. To everyone else she was his wife, the one he had chosen, the woman who was supposed to complete him. But I saw the truth every time his eyes strayed from her to me. And worse, she saw it too. At dinners hosted by the city's elite, she would smile politely, nodding through conversations while his gaze burned holes through me from across the table. Her manicured hand would rest possessively on his arm, but his body stayed rigid, his attention miles away. In public he wore the mask of her husband. But beneath the polished surface he was my shadow. And no amount of diamonds on her finger could erase that truth. The cracks began to show. One evening outside a theater premiere, I passed them on the red-lit street. She held his hand, whispering something only for him, but his eyes were fixed on me like a starving man spotting his last meal. She tugged at him, called his name once, twice, but he didn't hear her. Not until I turned away did he blink back into his reality, and in that moment I caught the flash of fury in her face. She wasn't blind, she knew. And that knowledge was its own kind of torment. But Adrian's obsession only deepened. He began appearing in places he had no reason to be. At the cafe where I spent quiet mornings, he would sit in the corner, suit jacket draped over the chair, pretending to read the paper while his eyes never left me. At a gallery opening, he stood close enough behind me that I could feel his breath on my neck, though he never spoke. When I walked away, he followed, silent, relentless, a shadow I could not shake. Then came the night when his mask cracked in front of everyone. It was an exclusive corporate gala, the kind where every detail was choreographed, where his wife shone at his side as the perfect hostess. I thought I could slip through unnoticed. But the moment he saw me, his composure shattered. He left her side. In front of the city's most powerful, he crossed the room, his voice rough and trembling. "Why do you look at me like I'm nothing to you?" he demanded, low but loud enough for the whispers to ripple across the hall. His wife's painted smile froze, her hand dangling uselessly at her side. Cameras clicked. Heads turned. Conversations died. His perfect marriage, his perfect image, fracturing in seconds, all because of me. Later, under the pouring rain outside, he cornered me. His grip was desperate, trembling, his voice broken like shattered glass. "Tell me what to do. Tell me how to make you see me again. I'll leave her, I'll burn it all, just don't walk away." But I did. I kept walking. And the harder I pulled away, the deeper he drowned. His wife clung to him, tried to anchor him, but it was useless. Adrian was already lost. He no longer lived for his empire, his marriage, or his pride. He lived for glimpses of me, shadows of me, the ghost of what we once were. His world, his name, his power, everything was rotting under the weight of his obsession. And the cruelest part of it all was that I didn't even have to fight. I simply existed and he destroyed himself. Adrian could live with many things. The whispers, the shame, even the hollow silence of his own marriage. But what he couldn't live with was the sight of me smiling at someone else. The first time he saw another man by my side, his mask cracked. We were at a small gathering, nothing extravagant, just laughter and light conversation. The man stood close to me, leaning in as he spoke, making me laugh. Really laugh, for the first time in years. Across the room, Adrian's glass shattered in his hand. He didn't even flinch at the blood dripping from his palm, his eyes locked only on me. His wife reached for him, worried, but he shoved her hand away and stormed out before anyone could stop him. That night, I found his car parked outside my building, engine running, headlights piercing the dark. He didn't come inside, didn't knock, didn't speak, just sat there watching. From that moment it became war. The man who once claimed to love me turned into something darker, something obsessive. He began digging into the lives of anyone who came near me. The man I laughed with at the gathering? His job mysteriously disappeared within a week. A colleague who dared to walk me home? He received threatening calls in the night, warnings that made him pull away without explanation. And Adrian didn't stop there. He started appearing where he wasn't invited, inserting himself into my world. At dinners, he would sit uninvited at my table, smiling with that cold, hollow charm while the men around me shifted uncomfortably. At work, anonymous donations from his companies appeared, forcing his name into conversations I didn't want him in. Even when I blocked his number, messages slipped through, short, desperate, suffocating. "He doesn't deserve your smile. You were mine first. No one will love you the way I do." His wife tried to hide her humiliation, but the cracks were obvious. She snapped once, cornering me with venom in her voice. "Do you enjoy this? Watching him unravel? Watching my marriage burn?" But she didn't understand. Adrian's downfall was of his own making. He had destroyed me once and now he was destroying himself. The more I ignored him, the more dangerous he became. His obsession bled into madness and the line between love and possession blurred. Adrian no longer wanted forgiveness, he wanted control, to erase anyone who dared to stand where he once did. And I realized with a shiver that his obsession was no longer just about regret. It was about ownership. Adrian's obsession was no longer whispers in the dark. It was everywhere. He poisoned every space I walked into, every friendship, every moment I tried to build without him. It didn't matter who the man was, colleague, friend, or stranger. If he stood too close to me, Adrian made sure he disappeared. But then came Daniel. Daniel wasn't like the others. He was calm, steady, someone who didn't flinch under Adrian's shadow. He made me laugh in ways I had forgotten I could, and for the first time in years, I felt a piece of myself begin to heal. It was obvious Adrian noticed. His gaze hardened whenever Daniel was near, his jaw locked tight, his hands curled into fists. The night it happened, I should have known the storm was coming. It was a charity gala, one of those glittering evenings Adrian's family loved. Daniel offered me his arm and I accepted. My laughter carried across the room as we walked in together, and I saw it. Adrian's face pale, his glass slipping, his wife frozen beside him, dread in her eyes. He didn't wait this time. He didn't hide. In front of everyone, businessmen, politicians, his own family, Adrian stormed across the room. His hand gripped my wrist like iron, his voice shaking loud enough to silence the entire hall. "You can't do this to me," he spat, eyes wild, breath ragged. "You can't stand there smiling like I don't exist. You're mine, you've always been mine." Gasps rippled through the crowd. His wife's face crumpled, humiliation and rage breaking her perfect mask. Daniel stepped forward, placing himself between us, but Adrian shoved him back so hard he stumbled. The room erupted in shouts, but Adrian only saw me. Only me. "I gave up everything for you," he roared, though we both knew it was a lie. His voice cracked, broken, trembling. "I can't sleep, I can't breathe, I can't live without you. Tell me you feel nothing. Say it to my face." And in that moment, as hundreds of eyes burned into us, I looked at the man I had once loved, the man who had once forced me to bleed for his pride, the man who had chosen another over me. I saw nothing but emptiness. "I feel nothing," I whispered. The words struck harder than any blow. Adrian froze, his face collapsing, his grip loosening. For a heartbeat he looked like a boy who had lost his way, but then his knees buckled and he fell, not from force but from the weight of his own obsession crushing him. His wife ran to him, but he shoved her away, crawling toward me like a man begging for air. "Please," he rasped, broken, destroyed. "Don't leave me again." But I had already left him years ago. In that hospital room, when he let them take our child, when he chose silence over me. So I turned, my hand in Daniel's, and I walked away. Behind me I could still hear Adrian's cries, raw and unrecognizable, echoing through the hall. The mighty man who once held the world was left on his knees, stripped of everything but regret. And for the first time I felt free. When love turns into possession, it's no longer love. Adrian didn't love anymore, he obsessed. Real love respects freedom while obsession seeks control. The choices we make in pride often return in regret. Adrian forced me to give up our child, chose another woman over me, and silenced my pain. In the end, those choices destroyed him. You cannot destroy someone and expect them to wait for you. Life moves forward. The person you mistreat may one day be the one who never looks back when you finally realize what you've lost. A broken heart can heal, but regret is forever. I found healing and strength again, but Adrian could never undo his past. My silence became louder than any revenge. I didn't have to fight him, argue or scream. Simply living without him, simply existing, became his greatest punishment. Adrian's wife thought she won by taking him, but she lived in the shadow of a ghost. The ghost of the woman he truly wanted. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories.